This is Lock 15 on the Ohio and Erie Canal. I'm Darren, and this is the Industrial Revolution. So I'm at the bottom of the Cascade Valley flight of locks here on the Ohio and Erie Canal. There's 15 locks between me and Summit Lake. Just off to my side here, we have the Mustill store. This is a historic site. There's a homestead and a store that operated here at Lock 15, right at the base of this long flight of locks. And they operated here well beyond the life of the canal, actually. So I haven't been here before, so we're going to be exploring this together. The Cascade Valley is a long flight of locks. You can see it's had some restoration work done on the bottom. The original lock work, like all the locks on the canal, were made of stone. Shortly before it was closed in 1913, it actually had a thin layer of concrete put over the stone, and then massive flooding from the Great Flood of 1913 permanently closed the canal. Recently, this section's been brought back, and you can see the bottom section here had some reinforcement put on it. And you can see up to the headwater of the canal there. Let's go ahead and walk up that way, and let's see what we can see here. So now we're at the top of Lock 15 here, and you can see it looks like rapids. Originally this would have been very calm, still water. They built a concrete wall here, and I'm guessing they've done this throughout all of the locks, just to try to control erosion further on the locks themselves. Up at the head of the lock, you see the two recesses on the sides. The canal was maintained at a depth of a minimum 4 feet. Each of those recesses looks to be about 6 or 7 feet tall. So the bottom of that is probably where the bottom of the original lock gate was. There would have been a concrete wall, or originally a stone wall, coming up to that, and that's gone now. And the water behind it would have been about 4 feet above that, or probably a foot or so below the top of the stone wall that we see here today. Let's go ahead and head up the canal and see what we see upriver. As we head up the canal, you can see part of the reason that the canals were not in fact rebuilt after the Great Flood of 1913, which is of course the railroads. The railroads were in place and suffered less damage. It was easier to rebuild them than the canals. But the real reason I stopped here is this valley here in front of us, which is called Cascade Race. Running parallel to the Cascade section of the canal, the Cascade locks, a mill race was built to divert extra water around it. There were lots of mills on this race, including a mill owned by Schumacher. And that mill actually is one that you probably haven't heard of Schumacher mills, but you probably have heard of Quaker Oats. And they got their water off of this race. I know their original site is just upriver a little bit further. I'm not sure if we'll get there or not. I'm not sure if anything's left. So let's take a little bit more of a look around here, and then we'll head up and see what we can find. Unfortunately, with the slopes here and all the fencing, I'm not going to be able to get down to that tunnel. The tunnel's original, as you can tell from the massive stonework, but it's also not very long. It only goes probably less than a quarter mile. It's under a bit of the park here, and it comes back right by Lock 15, just below Lock 15. Interestingly, as we look around, we are literally in downtown Akron here. You can see the buildings and the roads around us of Akron. Let's head up the valley and see what we can see. Let's forgive the road noise. I'm on a fairly busy road. What we're looking at here is a overflow dam. These were installed pretty much everywhere you had locks. Behind it is a canal boat pool that's especially useful in between locks on flights of locks. In part, it gives canal boats a way to stop and access local mills, and in part it means that if you're going through a flight of locks like this, you don't have quite so much of a backup. So the locks here, I'm going to try to get the numbering right. It looks like we have numbers 14 right in front of us and 13 up just beyond the bridge. Again, you can see the recesses in the walls for the large lock gates, which obviously the canal has eroded down quite a bit. I'll try to get a better view up above there a little bit. So these two don't appear to have had any space between them, although it looks in a graphic that I saw, it did look as if there was space between them, and that's actually where you'd pull out into that pool we were just looking at. We head up here, you see the recess from the lock gate, and there's a tunnel into the back of the recess. So why is there a tunnel there, you ask? Probably to take water, possibly over to this building, or possibly into the mill, which is right on the other side here. Or maybe it was a discharge from that mill. It's really hard to tell. Since it goes down, I would guess it was taking water out of the canal over to something on the other side. So today I'm in Cascade Valley Metro Park. It's part of the Summit County Metro Parks. As I mentioned, we are literally in downtown Akron here. Hopefully we get away from the lawnmowers and the road traffic noise soon. The Towpath Trail, which we're following, pretty much goes most of the way from Akron to Cleveland. I'm not sure if it's complete right now. I know they're working on it, so if it's not complete now, it will be before long. And here's what I think is lock 13. As we look up to the head of lock 13, we have a short gap, and they go into another concrete channel up there, which I believe to be lock 12. These locks were very close to each other, but it looks like, fortunately, they did have pools in between them, which means that boat traffic could travel both directions without causing significant delays. You're wondering why I'm not getting much closer to the locks than I am. See these fences here? I think they'd prefer that I stay on the human side of the fence. Part of that is to keep people from falling in, and part of it is because some of this structure is not very solid. Interestingly, if we look over here on this lock gate, we see again, there's another hole coming out of it. You can see there would have been a larger pool here. The concrete wall, I believe, was added more recently. That doesn't look like it was originally stone. And certainly the retaining wall on this side was recently added. So unfortunately, this is actually pretty well hidden in here. You see, we're standing right where the lower lock gates would have been. And with the undergrowth, we can't see much of this lock. It's here, but we can't see a lot of it. Looks like a community has since been built up on the far side. And it does rather look like all of the upper gates may contain these same holes. I'm trying to find out what those are for you if I can. So we head upriver some more. It's a fairly steep climb here. The locks themselves could actually travel about 10 feet vertically. If you get more than about 10 feet vertically, because of the way that the wicket gates were set into the bottom of the main wooden gates, you start to run into a problem with water actually pouring into the canal boats. And while you'd think the boat shouldn't care that much about a little water, the problem that came up is that you were pouring water through a wicket gate that was about 6 inches by 6 inches, maybe a little bigger, and that was under pressure, and it would spray out somewhat. Once you were down about 10 feet, that spray could actually be more than the bow or the stern of the canal boat could handle, and you were literally spraying all that water, effectively like being under a medium-sized waterfall, directly into the canal boat. For some reason, the passengers and the cargo on the canal boats didn't especially appreciate this. This covered bridge is actually a new creation here. We're going under railroad tracks, and just to ensure that things like ballast kicking off and stuff don't actually come in and hit people here, they've added this. But we can also take a look over here into the next canal, next lock. Of course, I've got this wire mesh here, and I don't have very good visibility in any case. We can kind of get an idea of what's there. Probably lock 12. And again, remember, this would not have been rapids. This would have been very still water originally. So we're in the mill race again here. And you have some little diversion dams, it looks like. There's a sign about a tunnel, but this looks like just a little dam just to slow down the water, build up a little bit more headroom, a little bit more head height for your mills to give you a bit more power, a little bit more stable power. Underneath another giant steel railroad trestle. This was roughly the location of the Etna Mill here in Akron. we look through the brush here, we can see the concrete wall, the lock we were looking at before. Over on the other side we can see some more of this structure. This is diversion structure for the mill race, as well as overflow structure for the dam. Remember, or for the locks. Remember, behind the locks, which have eroded down several feet, you had pools behind many of them. And if the water got too high, that created a problem. So you built a dam like this one. And if the water reached the top of that overflow, any surplus would just spill into it, and that would go down into the mill race. Because the second one I've seen signs of. Probably there were a couple of others as well. Ideally, every lock would have one. Now it looks like a nice little natural stream over here. And this was originally a stream, of course. You do have to have a good amount of water for a canal. So this is the amount of water that was originally both in the canal and in the mill race. The canal goes through one full lock of water every time you cycle the lock. And anything surplus to that just goes down the mill race. Come up on some more modern structure here, where everything was routed underneath the city at one point. It's a common fate for canals and for honestly a lot of rivers as well, to simply put them underground, build over them, and forget they existed. One of the modern trends is actually to daylight these again, essentially dig them back out, get rid of the street that's on top of them, and build greenways, parks, walkways, trails along them, adding to city green space. Hopefully that's coming up soon for this area. Unfortunately, I don't know if there are any plans for that right now or not. Let's head on up the Towpath Trail and see where we end up. Because here we have a graphic of what the canal looked like in terms of its locks. Locks, of course, being the most critical parts of any canal. What allow you to go up and down. So we start here in Lake Erie, go up a lock at a time. We'll eventually hit where we are here, and then you go way up. So I'm a little over 2/3 of a mile from where the canal went underground. And here we can see on the other side of the road, on the other side of the canal, there's trail over there. I'm on the Towpath Trail, the official Towpath Trail here. And this is Lock 3 Park. So I assume that would be Lock 3. When I come back the other direction, I'll try to get some better video of that lock. But for now, let's head on to the top here, to Summit Lake. So to come up on lock number 2 here, we have a bypass tunnel over there. From the stonework, I think that's probably original. And it looks like we even have, let's call it a canal boat built here, for an idea of scale. Let's go over there and take a look. It's really kind of a cool idea, building that little boat profile into the stone there, so people can get a really good idea of exactly how big, or rather how small, these canal boats actually were. The gates appear to be restored on this lock as well, as is the bypass here for high water. Well, I can't guarantee if this is the original high water bypass. You get an idea of the actual size of the canal boats. They were 14 feet wide on this canal. Most canals actually in the 19th century. Could be up to 80 feet long. Any longer than that, they wouldn't fit the canal, obviously. Again, I don't know if this is original overflow or if this was built later. There certainly would have been an overflow. I don't see stone here, which makes me think this is probably a later construction. And that's probably a later construction as well, since it appears to be a storm sewer overflow. So here we get an idea just how much of a drop happened here off this lock. That is probably, at a guess, I would say 10 feet, 11 feet maybe to the top. Almost certainly the water on the bottom here would have been higher when the canal was actually in use, though. In part I say that because you can see the erosion marks on the stone. Let's go up and take a look at the lock itself. Get a better look at the overflow while we're here. Remember, the purpose of these overflows was to guarantee that the water level at the top of the lock was maintained, as well as to ensure that you have some flow through the canal at all times. Having that flow through the canal kept your water clean. The restored canal gates, these huge arms out both sides. For scale, this is 14 feet across and a little over 80 feet long. Get around to this arm. Yeah, as you can see, not really a complete rebuild here, but it's a good impression. It's good at faking it. Head on up the river here. One of the challenges, of course, with these canals, when you're operating with timber, this is actually treated lumber from the looks of things, And even here you can see there's been some issues with rotting. And that, of course, is always an issue. The weeds you see in it, oddly enough, in an active canal, weren't that much of an issue. There is flow through here right now, but it's been very wet here lately. I suspect normally there's not as much flow. So the canal gates occasionally would have to be pulled out, and you'd have to replace the wooden components. There's also on this gate, there is no wicket gate, and there's no mechanism to operate a wicket gate. Let's head on up to lock number 1. So I didn't make it up to lock number 1. Actually, lock number 2 is just past that bridge. But interesting, if you look here at the canal, this is probably about where the water level was originally. But this water is maybe a foot deep, if that. Remember, this had to originally be 4 feet deep. Looking off the bottom of lock 3, much of this canal water is still channeled underground. So that's why you don't see as much up here. But this would have been 4 feet deep in this canal originally. Minimum 4 feet. It could be deeper. In some areas it was a lot deeper. So this stone was actually mined locally, but the era certainly looks to be the same as the canal era. You can see the little holes in it. Those are holes from blasting. We're heading under Exchange Street, still heading up canal here. Funny thing is, I tried to come here 2 weeks ago and got rained out. Ended up not coming here, just headed home. And look at the sky. Weather forecast said no rain today, till like 10 o'clock tonight. And it's about 2 o'clock. I don't trust the weather forecast. So I thought the canal was back with us again. And this is not the main water channel. It is, however, probably original canal, but it channels into this building up ahead where it's used probably for equipment cooling. May have been a mill originally. You see how stagnant the water is here. This is what happens when you aren't maintaining a constant flow through your canal. It smells a bit of sulfur, a bit of sewage, and lots of stuff growing in it that you probably wouldn't want to get into. So we're heading down canal to take a look at lock number 3 while we're here. This one's in pretty rough shape. The original embankment here has none of the stone there, just concrete left. You can see the recess from the gate. And that hole, I'm wondering if that hole is to handle water surge, make it possible to get into there, a little easier to get into there. As we come down here, see where it gets canalized. One of the interesting things here that I spotted, it's all concrete. If you look right here, stamped 1906. So that's when they put the concrete skin over the stone here at this lock. We went down the canal. I think it ducks under this building ahead, and we know it goes underground quite soon. Let's go take a look, see what we can see here. See if we can see where it goes underground. Okay, here's where it goes underground, and it looks like they actually tried to make this look good too. Taking a little better look at this complex here. Little 3 levels of short drops here. If we go into the dark, scary tunnel up ahead. Obviously, we're not going into the dark, scary tunnel up ahead, but we can certainly enjoy the waterfalls that they built here for us. And here we are at the top of the flight of locks. We have finally reached Summit Lake. You'll notice the construction back here. We had a few detours, plus I did cheat and go back to my car and drive up here between the construction and the rain. It did seem the best option. My camera's not waterproof. Anyway, that is the flight of locks here in Akron, Ohio. Cascade locks through Cascade Valley. Hope you enjoyed the video. Fortunately, these locks did have pools in between them. Not all the locks did on the canal. I can't imagine a flight of 15 locks without running some pools in between them for passing, though. That would be a nightmare to get through. By comparison, if you look at some place like Lockport, New York, where they had a set of 5 locks, and the 5 locks had no pools in between them. Fortunately, they did run 2 sets side by side, so one set was dedicated up and one dedicated to down. But even there, they'd still run delays of 2 to 3 days to get through those locks. So the 15 here, it worked out pretty well. And if you're wondering why I'm stopping here at Summit Lake and how it got its name, and we're in Summit County as well, check out my video on that. I'll link that in the description. In the meantime, though, Summit Lake here is, in fact, the top of the canal and the end of this video. And being the top of the canal, this is the Industrial Revolution. Hey, wait, before you go, I need your help to keep going here. So as you can see, I'm out here today in Smoky Mountains, filming on location. Almost every video I do is on location, and unfortunately that's not cheap. So if you could help me out, I'd really appreciate it. There's some easy ways to do that. First way to help me out is completely free. Just hit like and subscribe and share this video with your friends. Draw more people to the channel. That's great. That helps a lot. Also, you can comment. I love reading the comments, and I've had some great ideas from those comments, in fact. Finally, if you can help out on Patreon, Industrial Revolution at patreon.com/Industrial Revolution, or hit Super Thanks, or something I just added just before recording this. I have a affiliate store set up on the link to the video on the channel or on the closing screen here. Hit the shop button. That'll take you out to my webpage. Follow any of those links out to Amazon or other sites, and the channel will get a percentage of your entire purchase, even if you don't purchase that thing you look at. So lots of cool stuff over there. All of those really help the channel out a lot. Thanks for coming again and watching the video, and I look forward to seeing you again next week.